Hello everybody. Today I'm going to do a video showing you how to connect two routers together wirelessly. I've got a couple of videos on how to do that, connecting two routers and three routers together using LAN cables, and people wanted to know how to do that wirelessly. So in this video I'm going to show you how to do it. Now you can do this with most standard routers currently available today. This is a Netgear NR 2000 version 3. This is an older router and I'm going to be using it as the primary router. It's going to be connected by a cable to my modem and then to the internet. And wirelessly I'm going to share that to this router. They're going to talk together. And this is a TP-Link WR841N router. And it has something called WDS, which is the wireless distribution system. Built into the firmware or into the hardware. I'm not sure which one it is, but basically it has WDS feature in it. So in order for this to happen, your secondary router has to have WDS. Well, at least if you're going to follow this video and have it happen. WDS capability. The primary doesn't have to have it, just the secondary. So if you have a router that has WDS and you want to connect it to any other router, you can do that by following the instructions in this video. So here's how I'm connecting the two routers in this video. We're going to have a main router, in my case a Netgear WNR 2000 version 3, and a secondary router, a TP-Link WR841N. Now this can be any two routers as long as the secondary has this WDS technology in it. And if you don't know whether your second router has WDS technology, just check with the manufacturer and the model number and see if it's one of the specifications on the router. Most routers do have this at this point in time. Your primary doesn't have to have that technology, only the secondary, okay? So the secondary is the only one that you have to check for to see if it has WDS. Both routers will be connected together using the Wi-Fi, a Wi-Fi connection. The primary will be connected to the internet through a modem, most likely. That's the way mine is going to be. And that router will be able to be connected to with a hard cable, like these two computers, and also share out the internet with Wi-Fi itself to any wireless device. The second router will have the same capability. It'll be connected to the internet through the primary router. It will share out the internet to everybody that's connected to it wirelessly or to the LAN ports on the back of this router. You can plug in hardwired devices like a printer or a computer to the remote router and have it connected to the network. All these devices, all the stuff connected to both routers will be a part of the same network, okay? So first thing we need to do is configure the primary router. There isn't much configuration to be done there, but we're going to find out what the IP address of your primary router is. I'll show you how to do that next, and then we're going to log into it. So let's go get the IP address of our router because we need that to log into it and do the small amount of configuration and data harvesting that we need to do to finish this configuration. So let's go to your Windows button here, then go to your Gear button or Settings. Once you get to Settings, we're going to go to Network and Internet. And then down here you'll see Network and Sharing Center. Click on that. You'll get all this information, but what you want is the link that says Change Adapter Settings. Now we're not going to change any of the adapter settings, but we're going there. And you see that I'm connected either through Wi-Fi here or through my Ethernet connection. Now if I disable or turn off my Wi-Fi, you'll see there's a red X there. So now this is how you know where you're connected. The places where you see a red X, you're not connected to. If you can surf the internet, you got to be connected to internet connection, well, network connection of some type somewhere. Oops. And this is where it lists those connections. So in my case, it's Ethernet. In your case, it may be just Wi-Fi. So I just disconnected the Ethernet, and you can see how there's a red X on the Ethernet there. And if I connect Wi-Fi, then the red X on the Wi-Fi will go off. But it doesn't matter. Either one will give us the information we need. The information we need is basically, we're going to right-click on the active connection, click on Status, go to Details, and in the Details, you'll see IPv4 default gateway, and it'll give you a number. That's the IP address of your router. You'll also notice that it's 192.168.1.1 and that the DHCP server and the DNS server are on the same IP address. That is perfectly normal. Yours may not be this way, so what really counts is the default gateway at 192.168.1. So look for that. That IP address is the IP address of your router. So we'll take Notepad and put that in there. I think here, 192.168.1.1. That's my IP address. If you have something different, whatever it says in that default gateway, say it's 192.168.0.1, which is probably the most common second option or first option, one of those two, then write that down, okay? I'll deal with these two variations. Anything else, I'll show you on the next slide what you need to know about that. But right now we know that the IP address of the router for me is 192.168.1.1. Okay, so yours will either be that or probably that or 0.1, either one. And I'll show you on a slide how we're going to handle that. Close this off here. So now we know that our router is on 192.168.1.1, and you can verify that by opening up a browser window and plugging the number into the address bar. So 192.168.1.1, and you get a login screen. That's how you know the router needs to be logged into, so we know we've got the router IP address. So at this point, let me open up the slide, explain a little bit about IP addresses so you know. So what we have is two routers, the way I'm going to configure them, and the primary IP address or the main router is 192.168.1.1. So the next IP address on that network would be 192.168.1.2, and that's what I'm going to give the secondary router. Now, if you have something other than this number, 192.168.1.1, say you have 192.168.0.1, then basically at this point what that means is that you'd have to change the X number here. So if X on your router, your main router, is 0, then X on your secondary router should be 0.2, okay? So, this would change into 192.168.0.1 if that's what we found doing what I just showed you. And this would change to 192.168.0.2. And all IP addresses on a network need to be unique. If they're not, they conflict, and then neither one or one of them will not work, and we don't need that. Okay, so we're going to go with unique IP addresses. This is what we're going to go with, and basically, if you've got 0, this changes to 0. This changes to 0, basically. Okay, so these are the rules. So next, we've got the router. We've opened up a browser window. We put the IP address into the browser window, and now it's asking us for a username and password. Now, my router's been, I factory reset it, and it's the default passwords for a netgear router is admin, and then as the username, and password as the password. So we're going to do that, admin, and then password. Now for the TP-Link, it's different, and for various routers, it's different. So for the TP-Link, it's admin as a username and password as a username, and those are the default passwords. If they've been changed, then you need to find out what your new passwords are in order to log into it. If you don't know what the default password for your router is, just Google it, and just say whatever your router is, default password, and you should get a set of passwords that are default for that router, and that will allow you to log in with the default passwords. One more thing, if the passwords have been changed, they may be written on your router, they may be written on a sticker on the router, and otherwise you're going to have to contact the person who set up your router to find out what the password is, or do a factory reset, which I don't recommend, okay, because it erases all your settings. So here I'm going to sign in with the default passwords, and we're going to get a basically an overview of how the router is working. You see that it's on the internet, the wireless is on, everything's cool, everything's green. But what we're going in here to do is to configure something called DHCP. And what DHCP is the Dynamic Host Control Protocol. So what it does is basically dole out IP addresses to your network. Let's not get too techie with it. Basically, we need to make sure that this router doesn't create a conflict with the other router. And to do that, we've got to set it like this. So in my case, the DHCP server settings are in the Advanced tab. Yours, they may be somewhere else. Usually they're under LAN. So in the netgear, you go to Advanced, you go to Setup, and you go to LAN Setup. Now yours may be in a different place if you have a different router, but look at your documentation. You'll find the DHCP server. This is a common thing in every router. All right. Now the DHCP server usually is set here. I had it set before, but it's usually set to 192.168.1.2. And well, what that means is that this server is going to give out IP addresses in this range between 192.168.1.2 and 254. The problem with that is that if it gives out 192.168.1.2, it will knock your secondary router off the network. So what we need to do is make sure that never happens. And the way you do that is by changing the starting address from 2 to say 10. That gives us 9 IP addresses before this IP address to do what we want with. Basically, this setting makes sure that the primary router never conflicts with the secondary router. Here we're going to hit apply. And I know it's all techie. You don't really need to understand it. Just set it that way, 192.168.1.10 to 254. Okay, so I'm going to wait for this to come back up to make sure that the setting took. That's going to take a little bit. Maybe I can go somewhere else. How about the WAN setup? Okay, WAN is there. Let's go back to LAN. Okay, so there. It's refreshed, and you can see that it says 10, so that's perfect. So it's 192.168.1.10 to 254. Done. It's set, right? Now, if your IP address is different, if this would happen in your router happened to be 0, then this would be 0 too. See how it changes automatically? So, but in my case, as we wrote down, it's 192.168.1.1. So we're not going to change that. Just going to hit cancel on that. So it goes back. That's perfectly fine. Next thing we need to get out of the router are the wireless settings, because we're going to connect to this thing wirelessly, and the other router needs to know what the SSID and the password is to log into this router. So next place we're going to go is to wireless setup. And there's the SSID. So I'm going to copy this information into Notepad for myself. You guys can copy it on paper. I like copying it in here in Notepad because I can paste it too. So paste it, and here we're going to copy what the SSID exactly is. So it's main router, so I'll copy that. And I'm going to paste it here. And the other things we need to know from this are the security options, right? Which in this case is WPA PSK2, right? This is important. Let's see what happens here. Okay, back to Notepad. So we're just going to take that and just paste it here so we know what it's set to. And we need to know the passphrase or password required to get into this wireless. In my case, it's Silly Inc. 256. Of course, it's not going to stay that, but let's paste it in here. So I'm copying it, pasting it. So highlight it, copy it, basic stuff, and paste it. So now I have all the information that I need for the secondary router to configure the secondary router to connect to this router. Okay, so in the case of you can save this information, print it, whatever you'd like, but I'm just going to keep it on the screen here for a bit. So I'll minimize that. We're done with this router. The next thing we got to do is connect the secondary router. I'm going to physically connect it to this laptop so that I can log into it. And I'll show you that in a second so that you know how to do that. And then from that, we'll configure it, connect it to this router, And at that point, I'll show you how to connect to the secondary router and see that it works. All right, I'm going to hard connect to this router using a LAN cable. All right, this is a patch cord that came with the actual router itself, and it's two RJ45 male connectors, just a patch cord. And I'm going to power up the router, so plug the power into it, power it up, and plug this cord into the back of it. And I'll show you where. Any one of these 4 amber ports, not the blue port in this case, that's the WAN port. We only want to connect to the LAN ports. And another thing is, after this router is actually configured and connected wirelessly to the other router, these ports are available for you to plug anything you want into them to either access stuff on the network or surf the internet. So these 4 ports will actually become useful after you configure this router to connect to the other router. This port is the LAN port, the WAN port. It won't be useful. You don't use the blue port or the internet WAN port. Just the LAN ports. You can't. Okay, so 4 more devices can be plugged into that. So we're going to plug in the LAN cable to any one of those amber ports. And yes, you can do this wirelessly if you know how to get to this router wirelessly when it's powered up. But this is the easiest way to configure it. So then we take the other end of the cable, plug it into the laptop's LAN port or network port, and we're off to the races. Now, if you don't have a laptop, you can do this on a PC if it has a network card in it. Outside of that, I would say, hey, log on to it wirelessly using its wireless settings. But this is the easiest way to do it, and that's the way I'm going to show you. Powered up and physically plugged into the laptop. At this point, we want to turn off any wireless that we have because we want to make sure that we're only dealing with the hardwired connection. So I'm going to click on my Wi-Fi here and just turn it off. There we go. So click on the Wi-Fi icon at the bottom and click on main router for mine. I don't know what yours would be called, but just turn it off. Then at this point, we have to connect to the router. And if you don't know your router's IP address, it's the same procedure as finding it for the main one. Just go to your Windows button, go to your gear button, and then go to your network. Well, let me get this out of the way. Network and internet here, and down to network and sharing center. And of course, change adapter settings. Once you go there, then you'll see that I'm connected to the TP-Link here with the Ethernet connection. So right-click it, choose status, go to details, and once again we see the IPv4 default gateway. This time it's 192.168.0.1, but we're going to change that according to our graphic here to 192.168.1.2. So we're going to do that first. Let's go do that. So again, we know right now that it is on, let's see right here, 192.168.0.1. So we're going to open up the browser window. There we go. Go to 192.168.0.1. And since I reset this router to factory defaults, the factory default password's in there, and that's admin for the username. And oops, got the caps on here. Admin for the username and admin for the password. That's TP-Link's default passwords, admin. So here it's trying to go through some sort of default setup. We're not going to do that. We're just going to click on exit here. Then we're at the status page, which is generally the first thing on the menu over here. What we want to do is go to network and then LAN. And here you can see the IP address, 192.168.0.1. Well, we want to change this to .1.2, like this. Then we're going to hit save. And it says, modification of the LAN settings will result in rebooting the device. So we're going to do that, hit OK, and the device reboots. And I'll pick this up on the other side of the reboot. All right, so the router rebooted itself. Now it's on 192.168.1.2. You can verify that by opening up the browser window clean again, like I said, so that we're not dealing with cached information on the browser. We're going to go 192.168.1.2, and that is according to what I showed you on this graphic, right? So secondary router 192.168.1.2, right? Minimize that. We'll go here, hit enter, and we got to log in again. Once again, the default password, you should change these. Admin for TP-Link, and log in, right? Next thing we're going to do is go to wireless over here, and under wireless we're going to go to actually right here, enable WDS bridging. So that's what we're doing. Basically, we're going to use WDS bridging to connect to this router, connect this router to another router. So that's our option there. So just do that. Here, you could just put in all the information manually, but it's a hassle. I'll show you how to get the information. Well, the SSID to be bridged is your for mine would be main router. That's the SSID for the main router. And but this information here, like the MAC address, is harder to get. So I'll show you how to manually get that information. But right now, we're just going to hit this button right here, the survey button, which makes this basically almost automatic. So let's go. And then you see all the listed information for all the routers in my area that it's found, right? So we've got main router here. That's what we want. That's what we want to connect to. And look how handy this whole thing is. Choose the one you want, click on connect, and it auto-populates these fields, okay? Now, if your router doesn't have a survey option but does have WDS, I wouldn't see why it wouldn't have the survey option. But if it doesn't, the way to find the MAC address for your other router is to connect to the other router and open up a command window, and I'll show you how to do that. That's CMD, like so, and then you'll see command prompt up there. So we're going to click on that. And once you're connected to the other router, you do this command, which is ARP-A, okay? And that shows you all the MAC addresses of all the routers and devices on your network. And you can see there that the MAC address for my 192.168.1.2 is this number right here, dynamic. Now, as you can see here, you don't see 192.168.1.1 because I'm not currently connected to it. You got to connect to it. So you have to either connect to it with a LAN cable or with your wireless connection. And once you do that, you'll get that IP address. So let's do that. I'm going to disconnect quickly here from my Ethernet. Just disable that. I'm going to connect my wireless to the main router, which is right there, main router, connect. So it's connecting. And then we're going to go to our command, or DOS shell is what I call it, but this is the command prompt. And here we're going to type in ARP-A again. And now you know the MAC address of the primary router right there. Okay? So, you know, you have the ability to do this manually as well as automatically using the router. So just wanted to show you that as a quick aside. So if you don't have the ability to survey your network and get the MAC address, which is right there, as you can see, 100D7F6245DC, the ARP address gives you that same MAC address when you connect to the other router, the ARP-A command. Okay, so little trick. It's for you to find out your MAC addresses on everything on your network, but you have to be connected to the network that you want to find the MAC address to. So, all right, so let's reverse what we just did. We're going to disconnect from the main router. So now we're not on any network because I've disabled my network card here, my Ethernet card. So I'm going to enable it again. All right. So like I said, just to, now I'm connected to it again. Just an aside to show you how this all works. How basically what I just showed you, the router does that automatically when you hit the survey button, but you may not have that on your router. TP-Links do. So we're here. We're setting up WDS. We picked the main router from the survey page. If you don't have that survey functionality, now you know how to get that information. Then we go here to WDS mode. Leave everything on the defaults, but it's looking for a password, okay? So the password field, in this case, is going to be the same password as your SSID password or your passphrase that we put into over here on our notepad for the main router, which was Silly Inc. Okay, so that's the SSID for the other router to connect to it wirelessly. We need that over here. So I'm just going to copy that. I'll put it over here. A, V, there we go. Silly Inc. 256. So we're going to say save here. It says channel cannot be auto while DS bridging is enabled. Do you want to change the channel on the app, on the bridged app channel? Yes. We're going to say OK on this. So it automatically changed the channel to the other machine's channel, which is 11. So that's automatic too. So which is really nice. So now we've got that changed over. We want to scroll down here and hit save to save all those settings. All right. Now let's get some information out of here first. You can see that the wireless network name of this router is TP-Link D6Z-C0. So I'm going to copy that, put it into my notepad. So we know that the secondary router's SSID is TP-Link D6C0. Okay, so that's what we're going to connect to on wireless for the second router. Now, in order to connect to the second router, we also need the password. So we're going to go to wireless security over here. And you can see that the wireless password in this case is a number, which is 781.144.316. So I'm going to copy that. Copy. I don't know why it's not giving me the option. Okay, well, Control C will copy it for me. For some reason, I'm not getting the option to copy that, which is probably a security feature. So here, we're going to do passphrase. So you can see that I like to keep records. So you should keep records so you know what all this stuff is. All right, so there it is, 781.44316. So now we know the SSID and password for our secondary router, right? So here we can hit save one more time if you wish. Doesn't really matter. That information was saved already. There's one more setting we need to do on this router in order to not create a conflict with the other router, and that is the DHCP. And you can see here that it's clearly labeled, so DHCP, right? Start address 192.168, doesn't matter. We're going to disable it because once this router connects to the other router, it's going to get the IP, it's going to use the DHCP server on the other router to serve out IP addresses. Okay, so we turn that off. You never want two DHCP servers running on the same network segment. It's called a rogue DHCP router, and it's no fun. So we'll just turn it off by disabling it. Note that will not take effect until this device reboots. Okay, then it gives you the option to reboot it. So we're going to hit OK, and then once again choose to reboot it one more time. Okay, so it's restarting. When it comes back up, it will be ready to be connected wirelessly. So I'm going to disconnect my LAN cable here, and I'll show you what happens. Well, you know what happens. Let's disconnect it here. And you see I got the red X, and I got a red X on everything because my Wi-Fi is turned off. So let's turn the Wi-Fi on. Here we go. Okay. And where do we want to connect? We want to connect the TP-Link D6C0. Now you can change it to whatever you wish, but let's just click on that to connect to it. And then you can choose to connect automatically too, so let's do that. And there we go. And you can see my connection was interrupted because I pulled the cable out of it, right? So we'll just wait for the connection. So here we are. Look at that. Boom. So now we are connected wirelessly to the TP-Link DC60. And if we've done everything correctly, we should at this point be able to browse the internet. Notice how it's on 192.168.1.2. Okay, exactly where it should be and where it's going to be forever once you set it. And you can put that IP address for the secondary router right here if you wish. So, you know, like I said, keep records. There you go. Right? Now save this somewhere, and whenever you need this information again, you don't have to go digging for it. You can even put the ARP number, the MAC addresses in there if you wish, but in this case, you don't really need it. So let's minimize that. I can try logging in here. Well, not try. I can log in. I'm going to log in. As you can see, I can log in, no problem. Now, are we connected to the other router? Let's find out. Let's do 192. Actually, let me show you on this router where that's going to tell you. Okay, WDS status, run. Okay, so I'm assuming that means it's connected. So let's see if it on the menu over here says anything about it. No, WDS status. Status is in it. Connection is down. Scan again. Authenticate, associate. Try to associate. Run. Okay, so run associated successfully. Okay, so when it says run, according to here on the menu, we're associated successfully. But there is only one way to find that out for sure. So let's go 192.168.1.1, and that should get us to the netgear router, which is admin password, and ta-da, we're into the netgear router. Now, last and final test, can we surf the internet? Let's go take a look at Google. Look at that, we're on Google. And if you want to know what your IP address is, actually we're not going to do that right now, not really important. Let's do, I'm feeling lucky here, feeling lucky or playful or whatever. And boom, we are currently running. And today is Robert Moog's 78th birthday. Well, good for him. He had some really neat digital music, probably the first synthesizer type music. Not sure about that. But anyway, here we are. We're surfing the internet. We can go to Doodle's archive, prove that. Go wherever you wish. Do what you want. You're basically on your way, right? So that's how you bridge two routers together to share the internet. Right now we're connected to the secondary router, right? We can choose to connect to the main router, but basically at this point we're done, right? So remember, keep notes, keep everything organized. Certainly write down your information for your routers, like the main router and the secondary router, so you know where everything is. The SSID and the passphrase for both of them, so that you know how to log into them. And yeah, once you've got the WDS connected correctly and your router says run, like this one does, 192.168.1.2, admin, and you can see WDS status run here. We're done. That's it for my video on how to connect two routers wirelessly using WDS technology. You should be able to do this with any two routers that have, well, at least one of them has WDS technology, and that's the secondary. It requires to have that. The primary doesn't have to have it. The netgear, I don't believe, does. So it actually does work with just one router having that technology in it. It connects you to the other router and then shares out the internet and the network resources on the other router to everybody on the secondary router. All right, so I'll put notes in the video description below for you guys, links to these manufacturers and so on. And you know, if you want to check those out, just go to the video description below and have a look, okay? Do me a huge favor on this video if it helped you out and if you liked it. Click on the like button here at the bottom right hand corner and give me a thumbs up. It helps my channel, it helps my video, and I greatly appreciate it. Also over here on the top corner, you'll see a picture of me. That is the subscription link. You click on that, you'll be subscribed to my channel. And as a part of the process of subscribing to my channel, you'll have the option to click on the bell icon. And the bell icon will be the notification icon that will tell you every time I put up a new video so you can watch it at your own leisure. Once again, and like always, I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for your support, your kind comments, and for your time.